Peace, 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 peace. It's your brother A. Wright Bay back for a holy day reading for the BBT tribe. And I like to thank you for your presence and whatever you do to get ready for these recordings. We give honor and praise for that preparation. We just like to let you know that the BBT is here for the family, right? And we share different pieces of literature on our Friday, which we like to call our holy day for all Muslims around the world. We like to share different pieces of literature so that way you may spark some interest, maybe something that you would like to add to your studies, which you can reach out to us at mypdfbooks.com. That's books with a Z. And inquire about some of these topics and pieces of literature by these authors that we share to spark the discussion, to have us elaborate on some of the things that we speak about during the week, or maybe have some in our hidden away in our subconscious, and we'd like to bring those things forward and put them out on the playing field, if you will, so that way we can speak to them. Islam. So this week, by the grace of Allah, we have a title for you, which is entitled "The Nature of Consciousness," and it's essays on the unity of mind and matter. And we're going to go through just a bit of the introduction and maybe a chapter or two if time permits. But just relax, get some tea if you like, also a warm beverage, and pop those earbuds in, whatever you like to do to relax, and just listen to the sound of my voice. And as we go over these chapters or introductions and chapters, maybe you'll find something that the Holy Spirit would just birth in your spirit to allow you to look deeper into, or to take a further a journey into reading about, right? Just for your own self, and maybe share with some that you may find, think that they may find it interesting. Islam. So we're going to start with love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And I will start our Moorish American prayer, and it begins as follows. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation, by night and by day, through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Amen. Aya Asha Aya, Shalom Alakim, Al-Rahman Al-Rahim, Al-Haq Ya Muhammad. Islam, Ashe, 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 Ashe. Holy Aisha. This is what we do. We in the chamber. So I like to welcome you in again, get comfortable, and listen. At the BBT, we study the science of happiness, and we've learned and come accustomed to adding knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to our life. Allows us to navigate these sometimes what we would call uncharted waters, and allow us to build in a cipher. So we like to draw all minds in. Islam, all those true light seekers, lend me your ear as we begin the reading for today's holy day, the nature of consciousness. Essays on the unity of mind and matter, right? So let's scroll down here. And the author of these writings today is Rupert Spira. Islam, Rupert Spira. So make sure you check him out. Look out for some of his writings, and read more about him and the author and these thoughts that he brings forth. Islam. And this is a little excerpt that he gives us as readers to welcome us into the reading, Islam, into what to expect as we begin to digest this literature. Islam. So the book begins and it reads, in this book, it is suggested that consciousness is the fundamental underlying reality of the apparent duality of mind and matter, and that the overlooking, forgetting, or ignoring of this reality is the root cause of both the existential unhappiness that pervades and motivates most people's lives, and the wider conflicts that exist between communities and nations. Conversely, it is suggested that the recognition of the fundamental reality of consciousness is the prerequisite and the necessary and sufficient condition for an individual's quest for lasting happiness. At the same time, the foundation of world peace. Right? So I'm gonna read the first opening sentence again because I don't believe it was as clear as it should be, right? So in this book, it is suggested that consciousness is the fundamental underlying reality of the apparent duality of mind and matter, and that overlooking this fact or forgetting or ignoring the reality, right, is the root cause of both existential unhappiness that pervades in most people's lives and the wider conflicts that exist between communities and nations, right? So this misunderstanding of consciousness and how it plays the part in mind and matter, the author is writing here that it is one of the is overlooking the power in the place and space that consciousness takes up as it relates to our mind and matter, getting this twisted, if you will, or not really understanding it, really kind of adds to unhappiness. So let's figure out like what the author is talking about with this, right? So let's scroll down. And we're going to go, let's read something about the author so you get a quick picture of him right here. From an early age, Rupert Spira was deeply interested in the nature of reality. At the age of 17, he learned to meditate and began a 20-year period of study and practice in the classical Vedanta tradition under the guidance of Dr. Francis Rose and Shantatanda Shawadi, the Shanakakwari of the North India, right? During this time, he immersed himself in the teaching of P.D. Obinsky, Krishnamurti, Rumi, Ramana, and Mershi, Nesardatta, and Robert Adams, until he met his teacher, Francis Lucille, in 1997. Francis introduced Rupert to the direct path teachings of the Atmananda, Krishna Menon, and the Tantric tradition of Kashmir Shaivism, which he led or had received from his teacher, Gene Klein, and more importantly, directly indicated to him the true nature of experience. Rupert lived in the UK and holds regular meetings and retreats in Europe and in the USA, right? That's a bit about the author. So let's get down to the introduction and add on. Before we do that, let's look at the contents as we always like to do. See, you know what the book is beholding for us, right? So we can see here in this book, which we won't touch on tonight, a foreword written by Deepak Chopra. Well, I wish you always take a look at the foreword, but tonight we won't look at it. So here, introduction, right? This is where we will start. But the hard problem of consciousness, right? Chapter 1, the nature of mind. Moving on, only awareness is aware. Chapter 3, panpsychism and the consciousness only model. Chapter 4, the inward facing path, the distinction between consciousness and objects. Chapter 5, the direct path to enlightenment. Chapter 6, self-inquiry and self-remembering. 7, the experience of being aware. 8, the essence of meditation. 9, the outward-facing path, collapsing the distinction between consciousness and objects. Chapter 10, existence is identical to awareness. Chapter 11, the white radiance of eternity. Chapter 12, the focusing of consciousness. Chapter 13, there are no states of consciousness. Chapter 14, Wordsworth and the longing for God. 15, the shared medium of mind. 16, the memory of our eternity. Chapter 17, consciousness's dream. And then chapter 18, the search for happiness. And then there is an afterword by Bernardo Castro. Right, so let's jump to the introduction. Boom. The nature of consciousness. Introduction. The hard problem of consciousness. Our world culture is founded upon the assumption that reality consists of two essential ingredients, one of mind and matter. In this duality, matter is considered the primary element, giving rise to the prevailing materialistic paradigm in which it is believed that mind or consciousness, the knowing element of mind, is derived from matter. How consciousness is supposedly derived from matter, a question known as the hard problem of consciousness, remains a mystery and is indeed one of the most vexing questions in science and philosophy today. Strangely, the fact that there is no evidence for this phenomenon is not deemed science or significant enough to dissuade most scientists and philosophers from their conviction that consciousness is a derivative of matter, although more and more are beginning to question it. Most still believe that with advances in neurology and neural correlates of consciousness and the means by which it is derived from the brain will sooner or later be discovered, and this belief is reinforced by the mainstream media. How so? However, until such time, the hard problem of consciousness remains an uncomfortable dilemma for exponents of the materialist paradigm. Ironically, in all other fields of scientific research, such lack of evidence would undermine the premise upon which the theory stands. But in the leap of faith that portrays the irrational nature of materialism itself, the conviction at its heart is not undermined by the lack of supporting evidence, nor indeed by compelling evidence to the contrary. In this respect, the prevailing materialistic paradigm shares many of the characteristics of what? Religion. It is founded upon an intuition that there is a single, universal, and fundamental reality, but it allows belief rather than experience to guide the exploration, and therefore the implications of that intuition. Some contemporary philosophers go further than believing consciousness to be an epiphenomenon or secondary function of the brain. In an extraordinary and convoluted act of reasoning, they deny the very existence of consciousness, claiming it is to be an illusion created by chemical activity in the brain. In doing so, they deny the primary and most substantial element of experience, consciousness itself, and assert that or the existence of a substance, which is matter, which has never been found. I'm gonna read that paragraph again to get a consistency of this, right? So some contemporary philosophers go further than believing consciousness to be an epiphenomenon or secondary function of the brain. In an extraordinarily and convoluted act of reasoning, they deny the very existence of consciousness, claiming it to be an illusion created by chemical activity in the brain. In doing so, they deny the primary and most substantial element of experience, consciousness itself, and assert the existence of a substance, matter, which has never been found. In fact, it is not possible to find this substance on the terms in which it is conceived, because our knowledge of matter, and indeed all knowledge and experience, is itself an appearance within consciousness, the very medium whose existence these philosophers deny. Such an argument is tantamount to believing that an email creates the screen upon which it appears, or even worse, that the email exists in its own right, independent of the screen, whose very existence is denied. Very interesting concept. For many people, the debate as to the ultimate reality of the universe is an academic one, far removed from the concerns and demands of everyday life. After all, reality is whatever it is, independent of our models of it. However, I hope that the nature of consciousness will show clearly that the materialist paradigm is a philosophy of despair and conflict and as such, the root cause of the unhappiness felt by individuals and the hostilities between communities and nations. Far from being abstract and philosophical, its implications touch each one of us directly and intimately. For most or almost everything we think, feel, and do is profoundly and for the most part subliminally influenced by the prevailing paradigm in which we have been raised and now live. As long as we continue to seek the source of happiness on the part of individuals and peace among communities and nations from within the existing materialist framework, the very best of which we can hope is to find brief moments of respite from the general trend of experience that is growing ever more divisive. We can tell and we can see that in our day ever clearly. However, there have been epochal moments in history when the collective intelligence of humanity, watch that, collective intelligence of humanity could no longer be contained within the parameters that had evolved over the previous centuries for the purpose of advancing it. So it seems to me what this author is hitting at as the changing of the ages, as you will, if you will, right? The cycle ages, as we've been talking about in our reading of the Moorish Holy Quran and of that of the Red Book, Islam. So we're going to continue. The cultural forms that evolve precisely to develop, refine, and express humanity's growing intelligence are at some point no longer able to accommodate it and become the very means by which it is stifled. The beliefs in a flat earth and a geocentric universe are two such examples. Islam. The idea of a flat earth that prevailed in the ancient world was first challenged by Pythagoras in the 16th century BCE, but it took another 2,000 years for his spherical earth model to be fully accepted by all cultures. Likewise, the idea of a heliocentric universe was first suggested as early as the 3rd century BCE, but it was nearly 2,000 years before the Copernican revolution would make it mainstream. In each case, a belief that had served humanity's evolution thus far subsequently became the very means of its constraint. How interesting. But not without resistance. In each case, the prevailing paradigm was so tightly interwoven into the ways people thought, felt, acted, perceived, and related with one another, and so deeply inculcated into the fabric and mechanism of society itself that it took 2 millennia, more or less, for the last vestiges of these ideas to be erased. In the nature of consciousness, it is suggested that the matter model has outlived its function and is now destroying the very values that it once sought to promote. I believe, the writer goes on, that the materialist paradigm, which has served humanity in ways that do not need to be enumerated here, can no longer accommodate its evolving intelligence. What does this mean? That all around within ourselves and our world culture, we see evidence that the shell of materialism has cracked. Tell us more. The growing organism of humanity can no longer be accommodated within its confines, and humanity's struggle to emerge is expressing itself in all aspects of its society. Do we see this? Nor can its host, the earth, right, or Gaia, or whatever we want to call Mother Earth today, right, any longer survive its degradation and exploitation. We can see out of these reports of global warming, the melting ice glaciers that some report, the flooding, the rains in certain towns and villages that were the storms that are raging forth in different and diverse places that some places have never even seen the accumulation of precipitation that they have and are pending to see. So these things, we can see that the earth is reacting to the effects, as the author is pointing out here, of this limited consciousness or state of awareness, if you will, which leads us to harm our environment in a sense, right? So let's read on. However, it is no longer sufficient to tinker with the existing paradigm from within its parameters. A new paradigm is required to definitely address the despair and sorrow felt by individuals, the conflicts between communities and nations, and humanity's relationship with the nature. Islam. Most revolutions seek to modify the existing state of affairs to a greater or lesser degree, but leave the fundamental paradigm upon which they are predicated intact. In the nature of consciousness, another kind of revolution is suggested, one that strikes at the basic assumption upon which our knowledge of ourselves, others, and the world is based. It is the revolution to which the painter Paul Cézanne, if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, forgive me, referred to when he said, "The day is coming when a single carrot, freshly observed, will trigger a revolution." It is the revolution to which Max Planck, developer of quantum theory, referred to when he said, "I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness." He writes on, "It is the revolution to which James Jean referred to when he said, 'I incline to the idealistic theory that consciousness is fundamental and that the material universe is derivative from consciousness, not consciousness from the material universe. In general, the universe seems to me to be nearer to a great thought than to a great machine. It may well be that each individual consciousness ought to be compared to a brain cell in a universal mind. It is the revolution to which Carl Jung referred when he said, 'It is not only possible, but fairly probable, even that psyche and matter are two different aspects of one and the same thing.' The revolution is an inner one." I'll say that again. The revolution is an inner one and addresses the very core of our knowledge of ourselves, upon which all subsequent knowledge and understanding must be based. This book does not explore the implications of this revolution in anything but the broadest terms, but its ramifications does or touch every aspect of our lives. It is my experience that the implications of the consciousness only model that is suggested in this book continue to reveal themselves long after the initial insight or recognition itself, gradually colonizing and reconditioning the way we think and feel, and subsequently informing and transforming our activities and relationships. It is for each of us to realize and live these implications. The consciousness only model is not new. All human beings are at the deepest level essentially the same. Therefore, there must be a fundamental knowledge of ourselves that transcends the local, temporal conditioning that we acquire from all cultures or our cultures, right? And thus share with all humanity, irrespective of our political, religious, or ideological persuasions, right? Aldous Huxley referred to this as the perennial philosophy. That is, the philosophy that remains the same at all times, in all places, under all circumstances, and for all people. It's a beautiful demonstration, honestly. And actually, we bring forth this in the BBT and Sheikh Kyrie, sending illustrious greetings to Sheikh as well, because we always say there's saying one nationality, many cultures. So in fact, what the author is really getting at is to that oneness, right? Although we do have different customs here and there, right? But when we really peel it down and get down to the essentials and the essence, we're basically all the same. So in this is what he's saying, that all beings, right, on the deepest level are all the same. Therefore, there must be a fundamental knowledge of ourselves that transcends the local, temporal conditioning that we acquire from all of our cultures. Like, so the institutions that we brought up, whether it's our families, our local schools, our local education, our local religious houses, we all are brought up and have a certain colored lens, if you will, on as we walk through life, and we read things through these lenses, right? And there is a time where those lenses, we have to discard them at certain points, because it limits us as we begin to make new associations and new connections, and begin to broaden our view. And then we realize, like, wait, we're actually more the same than we are different. Islam, let's go. So we're going to move on. In the East, the Sanskrit term Sanatana Dharma refers to the same essential eternal truths that transcend all cultural bonds, beliefs, and customs. Sanatana Dharma, the perennial philosophy, has been available since the dawn of humanity and has appeared in many different forms and cultures throughout the ages, each culture lending its own particular characteristics to it, but never fundamentally changing its original understanding or its essential message for humanity. Nevertheless, in acquiring the local temporal conditioning of the cultures in which it appeared, the perennial understanding not only acquired new forms, which is a necessary and inevitable outcome of the transmission of knowledge, of course, right? It also, watch this, inadvertently mixed with ideas and beliefs that belong to the specific cultures in which it arose and was, in such modified and diluted to a greater or lesser extent, even in those cultures in which it arose and was, right? So in those cultures in which its essential meaning was not modified or diluted, it was often not fully understood, and as a result was wrapped in a shroud of mystery, which, whilst superficially bearing the hallmarks of wisdom, concealed and sanctified this misunderstanding. That's like certain terms, like we went over even a term in that class, the magazine, the Amazigin, which was a name of a people, which would mean, the name itself meant free people, but it classified a specific or a special type of people, Imazigin, right? And the name itself meant a certain thing to the people themselves, right? So, but then when you take the name outside of the culture, or it began embedded with different cultures, the name took on different meanings, and it began to not even lose. Well, it loses even its significance, right? But it's like, this is just the way and the trajectory of humanity as things evolve. What the author is pointing out here is that trajectory, in a sense, is what unfortunately, right, leads to these things, certain things in society not fully being understood, right, and as a result is wrapped in the shroud of mystery, right, which while superficially bearing, like, okay, the connection to a certain level of understanding, right, but the real value of what is really wrapped in it is concealed, right, and we more or less we bypassed it. So we can even say in the revelation that is brought to us by God men who walk among us, it's the same way. Islam. So the nature of consciousness is also, of course, subject to and profound, or subject to a product of the conditioning of the culture and the language it was written in, right? You bear witnessing to this own apparent what you would call coloring, if you will, of this book based on what we know today. So it is written. And so, although the essential understanding that is expressed in it transcends culture and linguistic conditioning, however, it is my hope that it is conditioned in its conditioned form, right, will serve to clarify rather than mystify, obscure, or dilute the essential understanding that lies at the heart of the perennial philosophy. I hope in this way to bring the non-dual understanding out of the closet of dogma and esotericism and reformulate it in a way that it is accessible to those who seek understanding, peace, fulfillment, and friendship beyond boundaries, who do not feel the need to affiliate themselves with any particular group. I'm going to say that again, who do not feel the need to affiliate themselves with any particular group, tradition, or religion, and who have become wary of referring to any doctrine, authority, or institution at the expense of their own direct experience. Watch out. In this book, it is suggested that consciousness is the fundamental underlying reality of the apparent duality of mind and matter, and that the overlooking, forgetting, or ignoring of this reality is the root cause of both existential unhappiness that pervades and motivates most people's lives and the wider conflicts that exist between communities and nations. Conversely, it is suggested that the recognition of the fundamental reality of consciousness is the prerequisite and the necessary and sufficient condition for an individual's quest for the lasting happiness, and at the same time, the foundation of world peace. Islam. So that's the introduction right there. So let's hit up let's hit up chapter 1. And let's see, by the grace of Allah, get through chapter 1. Islam. Peace, peace, peace. The nature of mind. All that is known or could ever be known is experience, struggle. We have, or as we may, with the implications of this statement, we cannot legitimately deny it. Being all that could ever be known, experience itself must be the test of reality. If we do not take experience as the test of reality, belief belief will be the only alternative, understandably, right? Experience and belief, or the way of truth and the way of opinion, as Parmenides expressed it in the 5th century BCE, are the only two possibilities. All that is known is experience, and all that is known of experience is mind. By the word mind, in this context, I don't just mean internal thoughts and images, as in common parlance. I mean all experience. This includes both so-called internal experience of thoughts, images, feelings, and sensations, and our so-called external experience of conscious or consensus reality. That is, the world that we know through the 5 sense perceptions, right? Mind thus includes all thinking, imaging, remembering, feeling, sensing, seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, and smelling. So these are all included in mind. I'm going to say that again. Mind thus includes all thinking, imaging, remembering, feeling, sensing, seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, and smelling. If all that could ever be known is experience, and all experience is known in the form of mind, then in order to know the nature, ultimately the reality of anything that is known, it is first necessary to know the nature of mind. Come on now. That is, the first imperative of any mind that wishes to know the nature of reality must be to investigate and know the reality of itself. Whether mind perceives a world outside of itself, as is believed under the prevailing materialist paradigm, or projects the world within itself, as is believed in the consciousness-only approach suggested in this book, everything that is known or experienced is known or experienced through the medium of mind. As such, the mind imposes its own limits on everything that it sees or knows, and thus all its knowledge and experience appears as a reflection of its own limitations. It is for this reason that scientists will never discover the reality of the universe until they are willing to explore the nature of their own mind. Powerful. Everything the mind knows is a reflection of its own limitations, just as everything appears orange when we are wearing a pair of orange tinted glasses. Now, I must have been in the spirit right there. You see, he referenced the glasses colored. Once we are accustomed to the orange glasses, orange becomes the new norm. The orange color we see seems to be an inherent property of consensus reality and not simply as a result of the limitations of the medium through which we perceive. In the same way, the mind's knowledge of anything is only good as the knowledge of itself. Indeed, the mind's knowledge of things is a reflection and an extension of its own knowledge of itself. Therefore, the highest knowledge a mind can attain is the knowledge of its own nature. Although, watch this, all other knowledge is subordinate to and appears in accordance with the mind's knowledge of itself. So it's like you can't see beyond what you know, or what we say, if someone prescribes the circumference of your knowledge, or draws what they would call a circle around your activities, right? Then they would be able to control the diameter of your actions, more or less, because you're only going to operate in this one circumference, if you will. So that's more or less what the author is giving us a pictorial, is saying, if as you have on rosy colored glasses, in the mind is the same way. We picked that as an analogy through the eyes and these lenses here. But like say you have this on your mind, which you can't see. Subliminally, we make thoughts and choices based on those what you would call colorings that we have grown with. So it's not necessarily always what you would call an original idea of our own self, right? It's usually imparted somewhere, some along the line, and it just springs up at the proper moment for us to grab and put into action. And it's due to a certain level of engineering and natural engineering, if you will, not any devious plot, but just naturally the things that we have grown with, we naturally make choices out of that paradigm, Islam. So as we move on, and we're going to get through some more of this first chapter by Allah's grace, right? So it says, everything in the mind knows the reflections of its own limitations. So we say, in fact, until the mind knows its own essential nature, watch this, it cannot be sure that anything it knows or experiences is absolutely true, and not simply a reflection of its own limitations. Like that's what we're talking about when we jump down. The common name that the mind gives to itself is I. Hence, we say, I am reading, right? Watch this, says, I am thinking, right? I am seeing, and so on. For this reason, the question, what is the nature of mind, can be reformulated as, who or what am I? The answer to this question is the most profound knowledge that the mind can attain, right? Why? It is the supreme intelligence. So the question, what is the ultimate nature of mind, or who or what am I, is the unique question that is in the only question, right, that does not investigate the objective content of the mind, but rather the essential nature of mind itself. So it's not actually like, what are you thinking, right? That would be one aspect of mind, right? But it's more or less reframing that question as saying, who is thinking? Islam? Boom. So the question, right? What is the ultimate nature of mind, or who or what am I, is a unique question. Watch out. In that it is the only question that does not investigate the objective content of the mind, but rather the essential nature of mind itself. For this reason, the answer to the question is also unique. The answer to any question about the objective content of mind will always itself appear as objective knowledge. For example, the question, what is 2 plus 2? And the answer, 4, are both objective constants of the mind, right? Or of mind. So, but the nature of mind itself never appears in, nor can it be accurately described in the terms of objective knowledge, right? Just that simple. Like 2 plus 2 is 4, Wait, you can't explain mind that simply, right? So just as the screen never appears as an image in a movie, you know what I mean? Like the screen projects the images, but you would never describe the screen as an image of the movie, yet it beholds them. So this is where we separate it. The mind's recognition of its own essential nature is a different kind of knowledge, a different kind of knowledge, a knowledge that is the ultimate quest of all the great religions, spiritual and philosophical traditions, and that although we may not realize it, lies at the very heart of each person's longing for peace, fulfillment, and love. What is mine? What am I? Where to begin? As an experience, right? As experience is all that could ever be known, we must start with experience, proceeding cautiously, like a scientist trusting only our observation, doubting every belief and assertion, and only making statements that can be tested and verified by independent observers. If something is true for one person but not another, it cannot be absolutely true. If there is an absolute truth, it must be true for all people at all times, in order or in under all circumstances, right? Boom. In its search for the absolute truth, science rejects subjective experience on the grounds that it is personal, right? Like you got your own thing, you that's something that worked for you, but over here, my experiment in my lab with my test tubes and beakers, I got a different result, right? It says now, for instance, boom. It says, right, that is personal and therefore cannot be validated by anyone other than the person having the experience. Boom. For instance, a vision of the Virgin Mary may be true for one person, but many others who have not had the experience will consider it an illusion. However, since science has made an error in rejecting all subjective experience on these grounds for an ultimate analysis, all experience is subjective. Therefore, it is not subjective experience, but rather personal, exclusive, or idiosyncratic experience that should be rejected as evidence of absolute reality. So we could refine the ultimate question as, is there any element of subjective experience that is universal or shared by all? Or if the mind only ever knows its own contents, is there any element of the mind's knowledge or experience that is common to all minds? That knowledge alone would qualify as absolute truth, right? Therefore, the knowledge alone would serve as the basis of a unified humanity. Let us agree that there is experience and that experience must be tested of reality, or must be the test of reality. Excuse me. So our experience consists of thoughts, images, memories, ideas, feelings, desires, intuitions, sensations, sights, sounds, tastes, texture, smells, and so on. And each of these is known. It is not possible to have a thought, feeling, sensation, or perception without knowing it. What sort of experience would be one that is not known? It would not be an experience. Thus, we can say for certain that there is experience and that experience is known, even though we may not know exactly what experience is, nor who or what it is that knows it. All experience, thoughts, feelings, sensation, and perceptions has objective qualities, meaning like if I feel this fire, it's hot. When you feel that fire, it's hot. When she feel that fire, it's hot. When he feel that fire, it's hot. When they feel that fire, it's hot. some experience, watch this. All experience, thoughts, feelings, suggestions, and perceptions have what? Has objective qualities, like just what I just demonstrated. So like that is qualities that can be observed or measured in some way, have a name and a form, and appear in time or space. It is in this context that I refer to everything in objective experience as objects. Be those objects apparently physical, such as tables, chairs, trees, and feels, or mental, such as thoughts, images, memories, and feelings. As such, all objective experience has a form in time and space, and having a form, it has a limit or limitations. So the author is right here comparing physical things such as tables, chairs, trees, and like a field, right, to as the same as thoughts, right, images, memories, feelings, so having the same objective experience or the same objective reality, meaning existing in a certain place or space and time, and having a form, which means that it's limited or has a limitation. Watch this. But with all, watch this, but with what is all objective experience known? A thought cannot know it's a sensation. A sensation cannot feel a perception, right? So a perception cannot see a feeling. A feeling cannot know an image. An image cannot experience a memory. Thoughts, sensations, all of these would be what called paradoxes, right? Like if we were to like compartmentalize these, right? So thoughts, sensations, perceptions, feelings, images, and memories are known or experienced. They do not know or experience, right? Whatever it is that knows objective experience can never itself be known or experienced objectively. It can never be known or observed as an object. It is the knowing element in all knowledge, the experiencing in all experience. We could say that mind consists of two elements, its known content and its knowing essence. These elements are not actually two separate, discrete entities. And later, we will collapse this distinction. I want to pause right there. And I want to tease you to come get this literature. I absolutely want to do that. I mean, this is fascinating read, at least for myself. If you don't think so, but I hope you do think so. And this nature of consciousness, essays on the unity of mind and matter, begin to take us inside, right? And this is where we want to begin to unfold, and we want to begin to bloom and blossom. So our true qualities begin to expand, and we continue to evolve as we were created in the image and likeness of the Creator to do so. Islam. So I just want to say thank you for your presence. Thank you for sharing a moment of your time, little old me, to share before you on this holiday book reading. And we at the BBT would like to send you love and light and greetings of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Thank you for being our guest. And we want to invite you to Sunday school. Inbox us. We want to invite you to Adab class. We want to continue to encourage you to get deeper into your studies, because we can't have unity without you and I. And you come first. And it's been a plumb pleasing pleasure to be in your presence. So until we meet again, the nature of consciousness. Inbox me for your copy. And it's been a plumb pleasing pleasure. And as I begin, I'll leave you on the same note: love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Signing out. Sending love and light from Sheikh Kyrie Hakeem Goodman Al Bay. Peace and love to the BBT tribe. Peace, family.
I'm a spirit speaking, truth seeking, heart reaching, knowledge leaking, seeds sowing, harvest reaping, man of meager meaning. I have yet to leave, I'm still breathing. To quit, I have no reason. I mean, I'm asleep, but I be trying to live my dream. I cannot even act if it's all easy. Either you gon' do it or you don't really. It ain't no in between. Baby, you can ask the sun. It's an everyday theme. Consistency in your routine is how you bring reality. Working like a slave, that's how I made this masterpiece. Living like a god, I lay at night.